Candlewick on Brilliance Audio presents On Snowden Mountain by Jeri Watts, performed by Megan Tusing. The journey took a lifetime, or at least it seemed that way. My world had just collapsed. I'd expected Aunt Pearl to help me there, in Baltimore. I'd expected I don't know what. I had had time to prepare for my father leaving. He told my mother and me he was planning to volunteer. He showed us his uniform. We had parties in the neighborhood. He showed me newspaper articles about Hitler and the war. He always spoke of it as if it were in all capital letters. With Aunt Pearl, our departure was a whirl. Things moved fast, slow, then fast again. I found myself making comparisons about things that mattered little, but would have mattered a great deal to my mother if she'd been acting like my mother anymore. But she wasn't. We caught a train to Lexington, Virginia, a nothing of a town compared to Baltimore. We spent the night there, in the most uncomfortable bed, which we all three shared, a difficult task, since Aunt Pearl took up more than her share. That bed smelled funny, too, like old soap. I wasn't allowed any bedtime routines before going to sleep, as Aunt Pearl immediately turned off the light. I understood Mama and Aunt Pearl were probably tired, especially since Mama looked tired all the time. But I wished I could have read for a little while. Too bad I had no books. As I waited for sleep on that lumpy mattress, trapped between the stranger my mother had become and the stranger who was my aunt, I tried to comfort myself by thinking of good memories. Instead, I fought with the memories of the past few months. I thought of my shoe salesman father, who didn't have to go to war, as it said in the letter I'd found squirreled in the depths of the closet. The letter told him, as the sole provider of a minor and an unhealthy dependent, he would not be expected to serve. Yet he'd volunteered to go, proud to serve in his sharply creased private's uniform. Gone after a whirlwind of parties and send-offs for my hero, as Mama called him. I wondered if that unhealthy dependent meant Mama, because she had had to go away for a few days the previous year for some fresh air, days when I'd stayed with my friend Peggy and her family. When Mama returned, nobody, not even Peggy, would jump rope or play tag or jacks with me anymore. That's when Mama told me books could be my best friends. She wouldn't let me read Nancy Drew or Lad, a Dog. She wanted me to read important books that made me look smart. I carried them around to make her happy, but I didn't even understand the first pages. Still, holding them made me feel close to her. Finally, I felt myself drifting off to sleep in that crowded bed, and I surrendered to it. In the morning, we learned that the train track at Balcony Downs had been washed out by mud. Aunt Pearl wasn't willing to wait for the repairs. "Perhaps you could borrow a car?" I asked. Aunt Pearl looked at me with a stone face. "Can't drive a car. Besides, you'd get sick. I get sick in cars on that mountain, and I've been living around here forever." She tapped her lips with her right index finger, then nodded. "We'll go by river." In no time at all, Aunt Pearl had us bundled onto what she called a packet boat, a long, low thing that loaded at a dock perched on the Maury River. She counted out the money carefully, and she managed the narrow walkway onto the boat with amazing dexterity. She refused the assistance of the men with my mother, and did it all with confident strides. Our pathetic pile of luggage was dumped unceremoniously in a heap, and we huddled around it. Aunt Pearl held on to Mama until she could deposit her on some sort of barrel beside my small black bag.